Wait, what should I call this? Oh, I know. Roll the credits. You know Nine Inch Nails, right? An industrial band from America formed in 1988 that consists of harsher electronic sounds and lyrics about darker topics like substance abuse, most notably on their critically acclaimed album The Downward Spiral. But all bands have an inspiration, even the Beatles. So what was the inspiration for the dark and harsh Nine Inch Nails? The origins of industrial trace back to a single English band from 1975 called Throbbing Gristle.
Subscribe please, you motherfucker.
Hello. This video is inspired by The Beat Goes On and Mike the Snare's Deep Discog Dive series, because I think both series do an excellent job in explaining the history of a certain band, and in the case of DDD, says his own thoughts about the album and or certain song. One problem is that I only do popular artists. Anyone of my subscribers know before is that I like music that is weirder than the typical music genre, commonly listening to Swans, Death Grips, and Sun in the future. Probably not though. I also know that both series are viewer voted series, but I've never seen a band that is sort of underground except for maybe Chumbawamba, but you know that one song they did. So if this becomes a series, this should be for more obscure bands like Swans or Shoo Shoo, because this should be given a lot of love for their own style even though they have never hit the Billboard 100. So let's get into the very first artist in this series, if this becomes one, Throbbing Gristle. I have to say as well, I am entitled to my own opinion. You're more than welcome to disagree. Please don't kill me. The band it formed in 1975 in Kingston upon Hull, England, with members Genesis P. Orridge and Cozy Fanny Tootie, both of them members of Coombe Transmissions, which was a music and performance art collective starting in 1969 that put out a message that nothing has been done before and making art pieces that challenge aspects of British society. In fact, 3 of the members were once members of Coombe. The unnamed band at the time formed near the dissolution of Coombe. Coombe then moved to Hull to Hackney in 1973, where Cozy and P. Orridge met Chris Carter and Pierre Christopherson, who was a member of Hypnosis at the time, which all of them will work together on and off for the next 35 years. Throbbing Gristle first performed when Coombe was still a thing, which ended after P. Orridge became unwell after eating leaves, tree bark and drinking whiskey, while cutting their skin with nails on top of that for a performance. This was also after being called Wreckers of Society by a Member of Parliament, which I won't go into because it's stinky. After that, Genesis P. Orridge decided that the group should stop doing performance art. Before their first single, they were regularly thrown into the anarcho-punk genre, although they wanted people to think for themselves rather than promoting any agenda. In 1977, Throbbing Gristle released their first single, United/Zyklon B Zombie. Side A was about Togetherness and Love, while the B side, or double A side, I don't know which, was about the day-to-day job of a Nazi general at a death camp. So that one fucking around. This was swiftly followed by their debut album, the second annual report through Industrial Records, which was released in a limited run of 786 copies. It was also released on Mute Records, but was completely backwards music and tracklist. This release consists of both live and studio recordings, of which none of them are that great. This album technically consists of 3 songs. The first, Slug Bay, consists of 3 detached recordings from the Institute of Contemporary Arts in London, Southampton and Brighton, which I think is an okay song, but the recording quality is a bit iffy, plus the silence between the recording put off the song quite a bit. Megadeth is the second song on this album, and is a lot worse than Suckbait. This time it contains a studio recording along with live recordings from the Rat Club, Southampton and Brighton. Megadeth is a lot more ambient than Suckbait, which makes the song much more worse. But there is some golden moments, like when a Stooges song is played at the end of the Brian recording. Very nice. The last song is called the original soundtrack of the Coon Tremors mission film of After Cease to Exist, or After Cease to Exist in the Community, which is 20-minute ambient piece, which if you're an ambient enjoyer, I guess this could be good with music for airports. But I don't listen to ambient, so I don't really like it. The reviews at the time were mixed, while some magazines like Uncut like the album for being queerly hypnotic listening experience. Rolling Stone didn't like it so much. Expect reviews like this going forward. During the months after the second annual report, many things happened, such as P.O.A and Casey getting death threats from many punks at the time because of their musical style, which they included on the album.
This is a person's first message to Genesis P.O.A. I guess like I don't know, he hasn't got much longer left in this industrial world.
Yay. In 1978, the Throbbing Gristle released their second album, D.o.A, the third and final report of Throbbing Gristle, also known as just D.o.A. At this time, it isn't a limited release like the second annual report, but did have some differences between the first 1,000 copies and the second batch of 1,000 copies. Again, it's okay, but it's a vast improvement from the second annual report. With the music being a lot more accessible, this album is also comprised of live and studio recordings, but it's a lot less noticeable. This album also contains songs by each of the band members, similar to what Pink Floyd did for Ummagumma in '69. The song IBM is absolutely mortifying, followed by the surreal experience provided by Hit by Rock. This album also contains United, but what they did here is that they sped it up to be only 16 seconds long, which is the funniest thing I've ever seen a band do in my life. However, I think Dead on Arrival is a bit overrated. Again, I'm not familiar with their sounds at all, so explain me to Yamaha on about how I can't really listen to them without getting bored sometimes. Sorry. The song Weeping was originally a ball, but has grown on me quite a bit. Home Time sounds like You Know Nothing by Swans because of the recording of a child speaking about, I don't know. There seems to be something I must be forgetting. Oh, hang on. Hamburger Lady is the most popular song on this album, and by the band debatably because it has been passed around on the internet as one of the most disturbing songs ever recorded, although I think there are other contenders by this band alone. The lyrics from the song come from a story from Blaster Al Ackerman detailing a woman that was so burnt, her skin looked like burnt hamburger meat. It is debatable whether the story is true or false, but the song is without a doubt one of the most popular songs in the band's catalogue. Reviews were more positive but were not as polarising as the second annual report, with the Montreal made comparisons to Metal Machine Music and Ryan Eno's obscene phone calls, and When the Fridge Has Short Circuits. Okay. Pitchfork, however, gave it a 9.5 out of 10, so there is a clear audience here. Warning. This album only has 11 tracks. During the gap between D.o.A and LP3, they just recorded the mix in the Death Factory studio in Hackney, which allowed the band more creative freedom since they are not recording live performances to place onto the track list. Using a 16-track tape recorder borrowed from Paul McCartney himself, I guess that Hypnosis membership was not for nothing, I suppose. That album was 20 Jazz Funk Greats released in 1969, and the first fully studio album. The title itself has a cool story to it. The title has thoughts up by Cozy to make a joke at those random albums in bargain bins that say something like 16 hit tracks and Attic Soul classics. I don't know where this album came from. So they took a cheesy band photo at Beachy Head, Notorious suicide spot, and called it 20 Jazz Funk Greats, and would trick the buyer with the music. Unlike the other two albums, this one is very good. Great even. This is also more accessible than D.o.A or the second annual report, in which I liked many sounds from this, like the distorted guitar and sax from the title track. Convincing People and Hot on the Hills of Love are quite surreal, and how P.O.A and Cozy sing the lyrics. Persuasion was a very spooky return with a minimal beat and P.O.A's foreboding spoken word. 6660s was quite a jarring finish, though I thought the rest of the tracklist was okay. The reviews were also a lot more negative, sadly. but as time goes on, it got a lot more praise, such as Q giving the album 4 out of 5 stars and comparing the album and compared to being called abusive, the album itself. Throbbing Gristle also released a single in the same year as 20 Jazz Fun Greats, that being We Hate You Little Girl / Five Knuckle Shuffle, as well as 3 singles in the 80s. This also includes a Greatest Hits album. Sadly, there is little information before Throbbing Gristle broke up, whether how much they performed live or what the performances were like. There is evidence that the material on the second annual report and D.o.A. They also released 2 live albums in the 80s, Heathen Earth and Mission of Dead Souls. The latter documents the very last Throbbing Gristle performance before they eventually broke up in 1981. It is said that the separation of Casey and Genesis P.R.H. as a major reason. In the same year, Italian National Radio commissioned Throbbing Gristle to make an art piece that was recorded in March, which later released in 1982 as Journey Through a Body in Germany, and later reissued in the UK in 1993. The album kicks off with the 15-minute long Medicine, which is a terrifying sound clash that kind of wears off after 7 minutes. I would like Catholic Sex if it wasn't for the moaning and the really uncomfortable interlude. That's when you use out of context in, I don't know. Violentia the Bullet is like Medicine, but has some resemblance of a beat, and has screaming. Nothing too disturbing, just weird screaming. Exotic Functions and Oltre la Morte, sorry if I pronounced it wrong, Birth and Death are piano pieces. The former being more experimental, while the latter is just piano. Both are very solid tracks. Sounds Magazine disagrees with me slightly, giving the album 4 out of 5 stars. The Wire also called Journey Through a Body the scariest release from them. I don't really consider this one of their albums, but what can I do? After the official breakup of Throbbing Gristle, the 4 members didn't give up on music entirely. Genesis P.R.H. and Peter Christopherson formed Psychic TV. Christopherson later left Psychic TV to form Coil with fellow member John Balance, which released 90 studio albums in its lifespan, including the legendary album The Ape of Naples. Cozy Fanny 2 and Chris Carter joined forces to make the group Chris and Cozy, or Carter Tutti Void, or CTI. They go under many different aliases. So you're probably wondering, what the fuck is this? While Throbbing Gristle's 7th album was recorded in March 1979 at Industrial Records Studio, I guess Music want to release it has unreleased material, so I guess they're okay. And with that, Throbbing Gristle released their 7th untitled studio album, later known as CD1 or TGCD1, because it was the first Throbbing Gristle album on CD. This album consists of one 42-minute, 60-second long untitled track, which will put it at number 13 in my longest songs I have listened to list, which I will refer to as the El Silt list from now on this channel. So I will describe the song with different timestamps. The first 6.5 minutes is a strange sound collage with voice clips and many different electronic sound effects. The next 13 minutes or so is the folks experimenting on a simple beat, which stops around the 19-minute 44-second mark, and it then fades out. This portion of the second half is a most relaxed part of this album, I guess sort of a way to get the album back up to speed. First, this can be heard as well. Starting from 31 minutes and 40 seconds, another much better beat, pairing with that for the remainder of the album. And it definitely feels tense as the sort of ending is approaching, and then the album ends. I will say this, I think this is their best album so far. It's just really consistent all the way through, and I like the music that keeps me on the edge of my seat. There doesn't seem to be much information on the reviews for this album, or song, if you want to be technical. But Wikipedia has also reviewed by Spin Alternative Record Guide that said that the album is an album of meandering studio experiments, which could be good or bad, I guess, or a little vague. After nearly 20 years of inactivity, Throbbing Gristle reunited to record and release a new album, that being TG Now, released in 2004 on Industrial Records. Yeah, there is little information on how this album was recorded and whatnot. The album consists of 4 tracks. X-Ray, which I thought was very boring and Muzak-esque. Don't know why Apple Music gave it the grey star. The Splitting Sky was also boring, but if it was short by like 5 minutes, it could have been quite good. Same thing goes for Almost Like This, which could have been an amazing ballad of some sort. if it weren't for the length. The final track, How Do You Deal, has a cool concept that I believe about someone asking how do people deal with life's troubles and curveballs, I think. But again, I wish it was shorter. Overall, the album should have been shorter. Tracks as well as the 4 main ones being shorter as well. Many fans and critics say that this is an excellent return to form for the band, despite having only 4 songs on this album, and only being released on a CD and a limited vinyl release. LP7 was also recorded in the same sessions as TG Now, and was set for a 2006 release and then was delayed for unknown reasons, and then in 2007, Throbbing Gristle released Part 2, The Endless Knot, being their longest by far at 67.5 minutes. The first 3 tracks are quite striking, with Pete Orridge sounding like an unwell Eric Carmen in Vow of Silence. Rabbit Snare reminds you of the monotony of Breed/Holy Money era Swans. The track Liar Liar has a good beat with some cool recorder performances, but it goes on for far too long. The rest of the second half is kind of unnecessary in my opinion. Maybe the latter 5 tracks could have been an album in of itself, but I don't know. I'm not named after the first book of the Bible. There is one song I have got to mention, Almost a Kiss. This is an evolution almost like this from TG Now, and I cannot describe the improvement this is over the other. Peorage's gut-wrenching vocal delivery and the slow instrumental just make it such an incredible song in their weird little catalogue, and is a must-listen in my opinion. Critical reviews said this is also a great album from Throbbing Gristle, having a 71 on Metacritic. I won't say the album as a whole is a must-listen though. Great news! During the 2000s, Throbbing Gristle toured, most notably in 07 and 08 when they played reinterpretations of the tracks from the second annual report for its 30th anniversary, and was later released in 2008 as the 32nd annual report, which has the superior versions of Suckbait, Megadeth and Zyklon B Zombie in my opinion. After this, they tried to do their own version of Nico from Velvet Underground fame's album Desertshore, which the sessions were released in a limited edition 12 CD box set in a custom-made wallet. In that same year, they had a US tour which they released an album born from the Desertshore sessions, given out to concert goers. That album was The Third Mind Movements. The first half of the album has some cool laid-back tracks. The Man from Nowhere is a cool opener and surprised me on first listen. Perception is the Only Reality has the same problem as TG Now, and Not That I Am is a quite groovy track to kick off the second half. The entire track, split into 3 movements, is a mixed bag, sadly. Movement 1 and 3 are quite jazzy, while the second movement is kind of boring. Overall, the album isn't really that good. Many review sites said that the album lacks the punch of fury of Part 2 and TG Now, but became more sweet. Sadly, this is their last studio album, although something else was released a few years after the band disbanded permanently, but it is technically not their discography to some fans. But I will talk about it anyway because I think it's a important part of their history. During a tour on the 29th of October 2010, Genesis P. Orridge left Throbbing Gristle. The remaining members finished the tour as XTG, however P. Orridge later said that he didn't leave the group, just left the tour. I can completely get that tours for many bands and artists can be completely torturous. Take the OK Computer tour for example, which is well known for being very hard for Radiohead to complete. However, the band split up after the death of Peter Christopherson on the 24th of November 2010. Although this is not the end of Throbbing Gristle itself, their label Industrial Records reissued their previous albums after their contract with Mute ended, and 2 years later Casey and Chris continued Peter's vision of covering Desertshore with many guest artists, as well as another disc, which came out as the only record of XTG Desertshore / The Final Report. This is a double album that consists of what I've mentioned before. The Desertshore part of it, I will say, is a really surreal interpretation of the original album. Not that I haven't listened to it, I'm a lazy fucker. And if it were left at that, this will be Throbbing Gristle's best album. The Final Report, the second half is alright. It has good tracks like EHS, Dum Dong, and Emerge to Space Jazz. Trope bonus track, which isn't a bonus track, is probably the most surreal track I've ever heard in my life. And the others are just boring. That's all I have to say in my opinion on this final album. The only review I can find is Bookmat saying this is an essential listen. Honestly, I don't agree with that. You can listen to it if you want, but only if you want the full Throbbing Gristle experience. After the release of Desertshore: The Final Report, Casey and Carter continued to make music under their aliases, the most recent studio release being Chai and Virate in 2019 under Carter Tutti Void. There are 2 more Coil albums released posthumously, most notably Backwards, which has good reviews. Genesis P. continuing as a solo artist after leaving Psychic TV in the 90s, but has sadly died of leukemia in 2020. Genesis is also known for challenging gender boundaries for giving himself body modifications to look like his wife for a more spiritual connection with her. The band's notoriety grew through the rise of the internet, which leads to now, in 2024, Throbbing Gristle released an EP called The Last TG Single, which contains 3 songs which got mixed reviews, and recently released a live album containing a performance in Berlin on New Year's Eve 2005, and that is their most recent release. And that was the history of Throbbing Gristle. So I hope this becomes a series because I love these bands very much, especially Swan, since this band introduced me to experimental music in the first place, and as well as Death Grips for being my first hip-hop group I've listened to. I need therapy. So yeah, that is all I have to say about the band that inspired the entire industrial genre. The genre is more of a style of music. Make sure you subscribe and all that, and goodbye, fellows.